Have you ever felt that nagging voice in your head, the one that whispers or sometimes, well, screams, "You're not good enough," or maybe "You'll never succeed"?
Mm,
It's that, persistent feeling of not quite measuring up, that shadow of doubt that just creeps in even after you've done something really amazing.
yeah.
If that sounds familiar, then you're definitely not alone.
Yeah, that internal monologue, that feeling
Yeah.
is what we often call the inner critic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a remarkably powerful force, actually. It judges, it criticizes, and if you don't keep an eye on it, it can really erode your confidence,
Right.
make you doubt your own abilities, and honestly stop you from reaching your full potential.
And that, my friend, is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. Our mission, really, as we unpack the material you sent over, is to explore what this inner critic actually is.
Mm.
We want to delve into its origins, which can be quite surprising, and look at its far-reaching impacts on your life.
Oh,
But most importantly, we're going to equip you with some practical, actionable strategies, things pulled right from your sources, to manage it effectively. The goal here is to
yeah.
help you maybe transform that critical voice into something much more powerful.
Yeah,
Inner coach.
an inner coach. I like that. A positive ally. Yeah.
Exactly. Someone championing your growth.
Okay, so let's get into it. What is this inner critic, fundamentally?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
At its core, it's that judgmental voice, the one inside that undermines you.
Mm.
It tends to zoom in on your flaws, your perceived shortcomings,
Uh-huh.
and it loves labeling your actions or decisions as failures, mistakes, leaving you feeling kind of unworthy or incompetent.
And it doesn't pull its punches, does it? The language can be incredibly harsh.
Oh, definitely.
We're talking thoughts like, "You're just not smart enough," or "You'll never get this right," or that classic, "Why even bother trying?"
Yeah, that last one is brutal.
It's exhausting, isn't it, having that running commentary all the time?
It really is. And what's fascinating, maybe one of the deeper insights from the material, is that this voice, despite how nasty it sounds, it almost always speaks from fear.
Fear, really?
Yeah, paradoxically, it's trying its best to
Hmm.
protect you from potential failure or rejection, maybe even perceived danger.
Huh.
But instead of actually motivating you in a healthy way, it often just stops you from taking necessary risks,
Yeah.
going for those opportunities.
So it backfires.
Totally. It leads to feelings of shame, guilt, deep self-doubt. It thinks it's keeping you safe, but often it just keeps you small.
Wow, that's a powerful paradox. So, if its intention is protection, where does this critic even come from? Are we born with it, or?
No, it's overwhelmingly learned, shaped significantly over time. Your sources really highlight how it can stem from critical messages we pick up, maybe during our formative years.
From who? Like parents, teachers?
Yeah, exactly. Parents, teachers, sometimes peers. These messages, even if they were meant well, may be intended to guide or protect.
Mm.
Yeah. They can get internalized really easily and become that surprisingly harsh inner voice.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about like the wider world? Does society or the media kind of feed into this?
Oh, absolutely. And your sources are clear on this. Those often unrealistic expectations society sets,
Yeah.
combined with all the media portrayals of, perfection,
Yeah, yes.
they contribute significantly to developing a really strong inner critic. It's that constant comparison game that makes us feel like we're always falling short.
Okay, that clicks. Now let's get practical. How does this critical voice actually like follow us around? How does it impact our lives day to day or even our big dreams? It sounds like it could have really wide-ranging effects.
It really does. It stretches into almost every part of life. I mean, think about it. When that inner critic is relentlessly telling you you're not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
well, unfortunately, you might start to believe it. And that directly hits your self-esteem, your confidence.
Yeah, I can see that.
Often leads to a fear of taking on new challenges,
Mm-hmm.
right? You fear failing before you even begin.
And I can only imagine that constant negative self-talk must take a huge toll on your mental health.
Precisely. It can create this relentless cycle.
Yeah.
Stress, sadness. It can directly contribute to feelings of depression and anxiety.
Oh.
And that makes it incredibly hard to find real enjoyment in life or feel hopeful about the future. It basically dims your capacity for joy.
What about relationships? Personal, professional. Does the inner critic mess with those too?
It absolutely does. If you don't feel good about yourself, deep down it becomes really challenging to form healthy, reciprocal relationships.
How so?
Well, you might find yourself sort of subtly pushing others away. Or maybe the opposite, constantly people-pleasing to get that external validation.
Ah, okay.
Or just struggling with open, honest communication. And that inevitably leads to misunderstandings, often conflict.
And when it comes to achieving goals, I bet that self-doubt feels like hitting a brick wall sometimes.
It's a major one, yeah.
Yeah.
When you doubt your abilities, the natural result is often self-sabotage or procrastination.
Right. Putting things off. Yeah.
Exactly. Which means missed opportunities,
Hmm.
unfulfilled potential. And that can leave you feeling incredibly frustrated, just stuck.
Okay, to give you a clearer picture, a more immediate sense of what this feels like, we wanted to share some real-world perspectives. These come straight from the Young Minds content you provided, stories from young people who've really grappled with their inner critics.
Yeah, these are powerful.
First up, we have Eden, who's 21. She talks about embracing opportunities despite that, creeping doubt. She's been really involved in youth social action for years, applying for all sorts of roles. And yet she says she still finds herself being incredibly overcritical.
Yeah, Eden highlights that even when she knows, logically, that she has the skills for something,
Right.
that inner voice still pipes up, whispering doubts like, is this experience really relevant? Or do I have all the skills they want?
Mm.
And she admits pretty candidly that sometimes this has actually stopped her from applying for things she genuinely wanted.
Which is such a shame, isn't it? Especially since she notes that even when she is successful, the critic doesn't just vanish.
No, it persists.
But she offers this really powerful reminder, especially for young people listening. Our unique perspectives are incredibly valuable. As she puts it, your voice, skills, and experiences are valuable. It's like a direct rebuttal to the critic.
It really is.
Hmm.
Then there's Erin. She's 20. She shares her experience with how the inner critic shows up in relationships.
Ah, okay. How did that look for her?
She describes feeling this overwhelming self-doubt in romantic relationships, plagued by questions like, am I interesting enough? Or constantly comparing herself to maybe an ex-partner.
Oof, that's tough.
Yeah, and she specifically mentions struggles with body image, which led her to question her fundamental worth, whether she met her partner's standards.
Right.
And this deep insecurity she shares actually caused conflict because she felt too closed off to share her real thoughts and feelings.
So it created distance.
Exactly, misunderstandings. But here's where Erin's story really offers hope. Through open communication, she learned to challenge those negative thoughts.
How?
She realized that just by being vulnerable, having those honest conversations, her feelings weren't just listened to, they were met with reassurance.
Ah, that's key.
Yeah, and that significantly helped quiet her critic. Her advice for you listening is so powerful.
Yeah.
Remember, they chose you, and you are worthy of love.
That's beautiful. And finally, Rhea, who's 17. She gives this really vivid, almost painful picture of her inner critic. She describes it as the loudest voice in the room, just screaming nasty comments that made her hurt, angry, even cry.
Wow.
And initially, she actually mistook it for tough love, like it was some kind of protective shell.
Yeah, that's a common trap.
Yeah.
But this is where Rhea had this profound aha moment, a really key insight from that Young Minds piece.
What was it?
She realized that every time she tried to improve her life, she'd somehow forget everything she'd already achieved.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, all her hard work, her progress, it just felt like nothing. The temporary happiness of hitting one goal was immediately crushed by the weight of the next one.
So no space to appreciate the wins.
None. And then she had this incredible realization. She had been feeding her inner critic by constantly doubting herself. The more she doubted it, the louder it got, drowning out her rational side.
Yeah.
She finally understood her self-doubts were just insecurity and a deep lack of belief.
That's huge.
And her conclusion gives us this really striking analogy. She says, maybe you need a kidney to live, but your inner critic is like an appendix. The minute it troubles you, get rid of it.
Wow. That's a bold statement, isn't it?
It is, and those personal stories, they really underscore the reach of the inner critic, how insidious it can be.
Absolutely.
But the encouraging news, and this comes directly from those Calm blog tips you shared, is that there are really practical strategies to manage this voice, to reclaim your mental space.
Okay, good. So, if we've kind of grasped the critic's sneaky ways and its impact, it's time to shift gears. From understanding to action. What's the very first step we can take based on the material?
The crucial first step, and honestly one people often underestimate, is becoming truly aware and identifying your triggers.
Aware of the thoughts themselves.
Exactly. Paying close attention to those self-critical thoughts as they happen. Journaling can be super effective here.
How so?
It lets you track those moments, look for patterns, ask yourself, what specific situations or people or even internal feelings seem to switch on your inner critic.
Right.
This ties directly back to Ria's realization of how she was fueling her own critic. Awareness is step one.
Okay, awareness first. Then, once you're aware of the patterns, the next logical step seems to be challenging those negative thoughts.
Exactly.
What does that actually look like in practice, according to the sources?
It's like performing a forensic audit on your thoughts.
Hmm.
You got to ask yourself, are these thoughts really based on facts, or are they just assumptions?
Assumptions versus facts.
Yeah. Are they realistic, or are they way over the top, exaggerated? And then you confront them. Confront those negative thoughts with hard evidence that disproves them.
Like what kind of evidence?
Well, if your inner critic whispers, "You'll never succeed at this," you actively remind yourself of your skills, your past wins, times you did overcome challenges.
Got it.